click the links to join the channel here over at Subscribe. Thanks everyone over there. So Demi Lovato discusses banking and the gold standards under Nixon in 71 when they decided to go off the gold standard. Really? No, of course not. They talk about something completely pointless. So, quick video because the whole thing is just so friggin' ridiculous. But I see some of these things, I just can't let something this silly go by without at least a little bit of a comment, which is why I guess I started making videos on YouTube in the first place. Because I think it's all aspects, all facets of the culture war, I think are important, which is why I make these videos. So, first of all, let me virtue signal sort of a little bit, kind of a half-assed virtue signal. I have nothing, I guess, against the BLT community, but there is this large, cringy, very vocal subset that seems to be taking most of the spotlight. And in most cases, it's straight people who want attention who are putting themselves forward in a lot of these kind of cases. So they identify as some silly made up thing, just obviously just to get attention. Or in the case of Demi Lovato, or who's that other chick? Oh, God, that other chick I just covered the other day. They're talking about their history of mental illness and self-harm ideations, and nobody ever makes a connection like, oh, maybe the mental illness, maybe, it's like Ted Kaczynski was talking about. It's not so much, I was going to say the mental illness should be treated, but I started thinking about it like, so, everyone's pushing like drugs to, or even therapy to try to adjust people to this sick society. And then as Uncle Ted was pointing out, roughly that it would be better to fix the society than to get people to be, Gattaca living in a, eating the pod and taking the serotonin drugs, and like to have to drug people to survive a sick society. At some point you go, oh, it's probably time to fix society. Oh yeah, we're gonna what are they, the Schwab goes, we're gonna, a great reset. And it's like, well, we're gonna have to, I think it's gonna have to be a great reset. Yes, you're right, but not according to his plan. In fact, I won't fed post. Anyway, so these people identify as some silly made up thing just to get attention. But they identify as something that doesn't actually cause them to have to do anything that requires any effort whatsoever. So honestly, I do respect grifting for attention at that level. That's kind of genius. So other people have gone before them to pave the way. There's this, I forget the guy's name. He's one of the original gay protester guys from, I think, Stonewall on Twitter, and the BLT. Like if you're in that community, I think he was an important guy. Is an important guy to the community. But nowadays, the BLT kids think he's literally Hugo Boss because I guess he's anti-grooming, and there's the BLT, right? So it's the T that is causing so many of these issues. The thing is, it's an interesting movement where you have become so far left that the original gay leaders who are, in their 70s now, who broke ground in the 60s and 70s, they're considered far right now. I can only imagine what horrors the future holds, except that we're going to find out together. I suspect that they're going to literally sacrifice babies to Moloch. Anyway, so the next generation comes along and in current year, and they jump to the front of the line and say, hey, I'm marginalized, oppressed, disenfranchised, and othered, which is genius. Dave Chappelle pointed out a little bit in his stand-up special a few months ago. I think his argument was that his tribe deserved all the attention, and these Johnny-come-latelys are getting a disproportionate amount of attention. And they are getting a huge amount of attention, but here's the thing. Once you put this PC stuff on the table, and it kicked into gear, I guess, 10 years ago, which is when I started kind of paying attention to it a little bit. So what they did essentially was to make appeals to emotion a valid part of their argument, and they used the power of their control, the government, schools, and media to make criticism of such things not politically correct. But is any of this stuff real? No, no, of course not. None of this stuff is real. We are light years away from what is real. That's the problem with PC. Once you accept some of it to be nice, they stake the ground out, and then they just keep pushing on other issues, all because it's more trouble than it's worth to cause a fuss over it. But it's like building a structure on sand, and it's already precarious, but then every year they keep adding another level to it. Nobody wants to say, hey, we need to gonna have to stop it right here. It's getting really, really metastable to unstable. Eventually, it can't sustain itself because people stop bothering to play pretend because it has real world consequences, like some of the things you're seeing now. The surgical stuff. If you haven't seen those post surgery images, it's not going to be easy to watch, but you have to see it because you have to know what you're doing. You're thinking like, not today, Satan. I'm not. You've probably stumbled across it already. You got to see some of the things that you're dealing with. I mean, like, it's not that people are hurting themselves and doing damage to their body. People have done that for years. It's that the nation licenses as a Fed, the federal government licenses these medical people. So it's has deeper meaning when it's a licensed entity. It's a state license. It's not exactly a state agent, but it is licensed by the state, which means we the people are supporting this, and they're doing these things to kids and adults, and it's not in a back alley. It's a state sanctioned and licensed thing. So it's actually a much more. I'm trying to say it's much more serious. Anyway, so Demi Lovato is just diving head first into this Frankfurt School globalist propaganda and taking the spotlight away from whoever else. She's kind of taken the cultural conscious energy to talk about herself and the challenges she faces as a they them, sometimes she, her, he, him, in a well-fed person, first world nation, enough money to be very happy. Like, this is taking bandwidth that should be used to talk about the Federal Reserve and fractional reserve lending and the gold standard. This is peak bread and circuses to distract the cattle debt slaves from ever focusing on anything important. And Dave Chappelle seemed to think the focus should be on his tribe because he felt his oppression was real, but the BLT crowd was not real. It's kind of hard to say because the whole thing is made up. It's more that when the truth doesn't matter, when everything is in the language of feelings, and it becomes impossible to compare the two, where there's no rush to quantify things, because that would leave the emotion based argument and go into the realm of facts and logic, and they don't want to do that. And the media and social media energy is focusing on this BLT stuff. It seems they got tired of playing with the POCs. They had exhausted their usefulness, and now anyone could be oppressed. Think of where we are now. If you think you're the opposite sex, you are, and only a Hugo Boss would disagree with that. Well, once that is on the table, that utter rejection of reality, then anything and everything is on the table because you can use that as a signpost. I'm a black Asian woman. You can't argue that I'm not Asian and yet accept the female part. The difference between Scottish and Chinese is in, I don't know, the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe going back to Lucy 2 million years or something. I don't know, but the thing is, it's relatively recent. But sex goes back, 600 million years, half a billion years to the Cambrian explosion of life, which is sex based. So an Asian identifying as a Euro is more logical than one sex identifying as the other. Are either statements in accord with reality? No, absolutely not, but it doesn't have to be. It won't be true, but it will be accepted, which is obviously a big difference. Because once enough people stop playing pretend, all this stuff disappears overnight. That's how easy it would be. You could, with a snap of your fingers, it could be like once was the meme of the kid throwing the doll away and then switching to some other red herring shiny object because it was never real in the first place. It's Weimar Emperor has no clothes stuff. It's all Frankfurt School Bolshevism, which apparently isn't taught in schools. If the history of Bolshevism was taught, we wouldn't be where we are now. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Check out Subscribe Star. I'll see you guys all next episode.